Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Circle Up and Get Real, where we talk about things that matter with people who matter. And today, the person who matters is my friend Kara Moll, who I haven't seen, Kara, in real life. Man,
Meryl.
10 years? I don't even,
I don't want to think it's been that long, Jody.
I know,
So,
I know.
right, but it has been at least 10 years in person. And yet, I follow you. I've seen your work. I don't want to I don't want to say I'm a stalker, but I might follow you from afar.
Same. So here we go. So it feels like we have just known each other all those years that we haven't been in
Exactly.
personal contact. But Kara and I met when I was at Keller Williams as a team leader. And I'm going to say it was 2013, Kara, just from my memory,
Yeah, yeah. I think that's
probably.
spot on. Yeah.
Yeah. And we were in a class together. And
Mhm.
we took Train the Trainer 1 and then Train the Trainer 2 at Keller Williams. You had to kind of get approved to do some of the classes, and both Kara and I were approved in this course to become faculty members for Keller. And that's how we met.
We took a class to train on how to talk and how to
Yeah.
present,
Mhm.
right? I
And
mean,
now look at what
which
we're
seems
doing.
funny. Exactly.
Uh,
Exactly. And Jody, looking back on that, I look at some of the faces in that class and I'm in touch with people, whether they're with KW or not. And um it was just an instrumental class in building some great networking connections, right? It's when you find something you're passionate about, and I know you're passionate about training and teaching and coaching and just helping people live their best lives, right? It's the people that I gravitate in that class that have that have those passions, because I share those as well.
Yeah, isn't that it's fun to be in a class for that purpose because that's what the class was for. And then hone those skills of connection because then you don't have to be in a class, you can be somewhere out and go, that person, there's something about that person that I really feel
Exactly.
connected to. So
Exactly.
let me explain to my listeners who you are, Kara. So Kara
Sure.
Moll is a founding partner at Keller Williams ONE, Chicago, and an approved faculty trainer at Keller Williams University, and the head coach at MPAS Coaching, which we're going to talk about in a second.
Yeah.
Kara has over 2 decades of experience. We'll just say a lot, 2 decades. You're not that old, so I
Yes.
don't know how that can be possible. Of experience in real estate and coaching through a combination of neuro-linguistic programming, which we're also going to talk about,
Yeah.
and energy leadership coaching. Uh,
Mhm.
Kara works to elevate the skills and business acumen of her clients. So it's your platform is all about knowing what to say, how to say it, when to say it, because from what I'm reading about you, that's a missing element for the effectiveness of leaders.
You know what, Jody, you are exactly right. And I want to make one clarification, because I do have some amazing peers in this. I'm not the head coach. I am a head coach at
Okay.
MAPS. There are a handful of us, and our job is to, train other coaches. So I would be remiss if I didn't mention that it's not just me. There's some other amazing people doing that as well.
Perfect.
Um, and yes, I think what's missing in sales, in business, and in life is the ability to communicate with others in a way that is effective, right? I mean, sometimes when you're sitting down with your spouse or your significant other, you're not really thinking like, I need to work on my effective communication with you. No, what you're thinking is, why doesn't this person understand me? Right? Or if you're leading an organization and you're like, gosh, I cannot seem to motivate my people. Well, it's most likely because you're not communicating in a way that that's resonating with them, right? They're hearing, but they're not understanding, or it's not sinking in. It's not doing something that's going to move it to the next level. And what I see a lot is an incredible amount of frustration around this, because people are like, I'm doing this. I told you whatever.
Mm.
Okay, well, just because you said it doesn't mean they understood it, or it even motivated them to do something about
Mm.
it. So it's a big gap. And the number one thing I see is that the moment you understand that the way to win in communication is to communicate with someone like they want to be communicated with, it's the platinum rule, right? We all know the golden rule: treat others the way you would want to be treated. The platinum rule: treat others the way they would want to be treated. The moment you understand that and start working on your flexibility and your communication, that's when everybody starts to win. And it's really like, I'm going to date myself here. Remember the movie The Blues Brothers?
Yeah.
And I think it's the John Belushi character. I don't remember which is Jake or Elwood, right? And
Right.
he's in the church, and all of a sudden he has that epiphany moment, and he does the backflips, and he goes, "I see the light," and the light shines in the church on him.
Yeah.
It's the moment you realize that what you have to do is be flexible in your communication, and that's how you're going to win and motivate others to do, or inspire others to do what they want to do or what you want them to do. That's the key.
Yeah.
That's where it all starts.
I learned those things at Keller Williams as a team leader. We had such great training there. Oh my goodness. So
Amazing
it was
training
about
company.
it was a real estate company, but it really wasn't. It was a training company that was thinly disguised as a real estate company in my experience.
Very thinly,
Yeah.
very thinly. Yes.
And we learned
Yes.
those things as team leaders. I mean, I learned, from Gary Keller himself
Mhm.
and Mark Willis, who now is
Yes.
back. Mark Willis
Yes.
was such a great mentor for me. And I remember Mark saying, you have to speak to people where they are so you can take them where you know they really want to go.
That's it. You don't, so often in communication, if you have the visual, it's not you like standing on a stage and barking at them, or standing across from them, or sitting across the table. It's really what you want to do to effectively communicate is visualizing yourself walking around, standing next to them, and linking arms with the person. And that's how you move forward. That's how you'll get them to move forward. It's
Right.
not an it's not a push.
Mhm.
It's a, hey, let's do this together.
Right.
Because when someone feels it on an unconscious and neurological level, they will naturally follow you.
Well, it seems like that would be, you have to pretty much get rid of your ego as a
Yeah.
leader if you want that. I mean, that's a big if, I guess.
Yeah.
If what you
Yeah.
want is people to move, you know?
Hmm.
And I
Well,
suppose if you don't, and if you think it's about you, the leader, that's a whole different situation, I would guess.
that's it. And I mean, that's kind of the double-edged sword there, because if you want to become a better leader, you do need to look within, right? We know that, right? It's the only way to lead is to have people following you. And if you lead by leaving dead bodies in your wake, well, that doesn't really work very well, because then there's no one left to lead eventually, right? So it is looking introspectively, but it's asking yourself, what do I need to do to change to better serve this person? One of my phenomenal mentors, the author Phil M. Jones, has a phrase: change your words, change your world. And again, it's that realization that you may know everything. That's great. If someone's not resonating with your message, it's because you're not communicating. And what you have to figure out is, how do I communicate with them? And at the point where there's resistance, you haven't figured out, you don't know how to communicate with them. So you don't know everything. So
Ah,
the easiest thing to do is to start asking questions.
so good, so good. I want to get into the details of this
Yeah.
more, but I want to know a little bit about you. I want people to know a
Yeah.
little bit more about you. So,
Yeah.
did you grow up in Chicago?
I did. I did. Can you tell by the accent? I mean,
A little
people tell
bit,
me I
a
have an accent. I don't
little
know.
bit.
I'm like, you all have an accent, not me.
The wide,
Yes,
the
I
wide, yeah.
I grew up in Chicago. I am so it's, you probably know this. People, um if you live within like a 3-hour radius of Chicago, the city, you say you're from Chicago, right? Everybody's from Chicago.
Yeah.
Was on a European cruise this summer, sitting next to some people, and they were from Dallas, and they were talking to the people on the other side, and they go, "Oh, we're from Chicago." And I said, "Oh, you're from Chicago? I'm from Chicago too. Where are you from?" And they go, Milwaukee. I'm like, "That
Oh,
is Wisconsin. That is not Chicago." And they're like, "Yeah, but people never heard of it." I'm like, "You can't do that." So I
you're
was a
hijacking my town.
exactly. And Milwaukee's very lovely. Cheese, sausage,
Right,
beer. I mean, come on, come on.
right.
So I was a suburbanite, went to school in the city for a little bit and then settled back in the burbs. And then about 8 or 9 years ago, my husband and I decided our daughter had moved back from the West Coast where she was in college and she was living in the city. And my husband and I said, we've always talked about living in the city. Why don't we go do that? So we've been living in the city now for 8 or 9 years, and just love it. I love, some people are like, oh, I could never live in the city. I like that you can walk to things, that there's transportation wherever you want to go, and just the close proximity of everything. So I am a Chicago girl, born, raised, and now living. And probably to the detriment of my parents and my upbringing, I did move to the north side,
Oh,
on the north
no.
side of the river. We were Southsiders through and through, White Sox fans, the Cubs
Yep.
were off. I'm now a Cubs season ticket holder. What do you want? I mean,
You know,
it's convenience.
as
It's
as
convenience.
we
I can walk
as
4 blocks
we
and go
learn,
to a game. Why?
I
I
know,
mean, why wouldn't I?
as we learn, we grow, we change. I mean,
Exactly. Hey, and it's not like any of them are winning prizes. So it's just more for the fun, entertainment
that-
value.
that's awesome. So
Yeah.
then from there, grew up in
Yeah.
Chicago. What was
Yeah.
your path to get where you are now? And real
Wow.
estate, was that your thing at first, or how'd you
It
get
it
there?
wasn't. It wasn't. I grew up in a banking family. So literally, Jody, when I was like 10 years old, I would go in with my dad to work and I would go down to the basement of this bank and I would file checks. Now, there's going to be some people listening to this that are like, filing and what are checks.
Oh,
But that's, remember when you used to get your bank statement and have all the checks? I would file the checks. And it kept me busy during breaks and things like that. I always liked to work. I always liked to be around people. And even through high school and college, I would work my breaks. I would work in the loan department, doing documents in the trust department, things like that. And so when I graduated from college, I immediately thought, well, of course it's banking, right? And I was blessed enough to go to work with one of the most amazing banks, Northern Trust Company. Loved it. Our department was huge and it was like grad school because I think everybody in there was under 27 years old and we probably had 300 of us. And it was just really cool. It was the late 80s. I mean, we were living in the you wear your suit with the big shoulder pads and the little tie and the whole thing. And it was great. And then the commute started getting to me, and I'm like, I just don't want to have to get up at 5 o'clock in the mornings to, be at work and then not get home until 7 at night. Um, so there was an opening. I started looking around, and there was an opening at one of the banks that my family was affiliated with, and I went in and interviewed for the job. And I got it. And I worked my way up there from a loan officer to a senior loan officer to director of marketing. And then the banks were sold. Um, and when I knew they were on the market and it was the height of grunge and alternative rock, and my favorite radio station I would listen to in my office every day. I was on their website because I think they had a contest or something to win some tickets. So I went on, working hard, of course. And I saw this like jobs or career opportunities or something like that. And I clicked on it and I read this job description. I went, holy crap, that's my job. And I
wow.
called my assistant in. I'm like, Lee, come in here, read this. She goes, holy crap, that's your job. I'm like, I know. So 4 weeks and 6 interviews later, it was my job. They just had a process. So I did radio. I did a little bit of voiceover, a little bit of on-air work, but it was mostly non-traditional sales, meaning Dannon Yogurt wanted to move more product in a Jewel food store. And what do we do? Oh, the Blackhawks want to get involved too, the Chicago Blackhawks. So you buy the new Dannon Kids yogurt. You send in 6 lids. You get a life-size Chris Chelios growth chart, and somebody can ultimately win a sweepstakes ticket to go to the game, meet them, something like that. So putting together those kind of promotions. So I was able to use my lending background and my marketing background and built that into like a national job opportunity, and 9/11 hit. And travel, because I was basically going from Chicago to New York, Miami, Cincinnati, and LA
Wow.
weekly basis, sometimes 2 of those in a week. it was too much, because then you had to add a full day on either end of a trip because of all the new travel restrictions they were putting in. And I looked around and I went, I like my husband. I love my daughter. I mean, I love them both. I don't want to be gone that long. So this is where it gets really good. I retired, and I was home for about 3 months. And I remember having this epiphany that nobody pays you to cook or clean or do the laundry. And I'm done. I'm done being home. And I went and got my real estate license. And from
Yeah.
there, took all of that background and was rookie of the year in our office the first year. And just, I think my thing has always been, I can, I have the innate ability to understand what someone's talking about and see it steps ahead, but then to slow down, and as we were talking before, bring them with on that journey so that they self-discover this is the path that get there. Because if not, I'm just some mom telling a kid to go clean their room, and nobody's
Right.
going to do that, right? So that's what brought me to real estate and then training, and just loved it. There was a class within KW. I don't know if you remember Bold.
Of
Bold
course.
was
Yes.
one of the flagship courses of KW that literally I know better than to say the course changed my life. The course material put me in a space that allowed me to change my life and
Yeah.
really open up my possibilities. And that's what encouraged me to go to do some training and to start to speak and do things I hadn't done in years. And now I look back and think, wow, that it was all because of that one instructor in that one class that didn't let me off the hook, that pushed me a little bit or pulled me along into what they saw in me, that kind of laid out this path here. So I haven't been doing real estate. I own a real estate team, but I've been retired, Judy, from real estate for probably about 5 years now. It's a family team, so we still talk real estate all the
Sure.
time, and my name's still on it. But I don't actively do it. My whole focus has been coaching, training, language, that whole thing.
Yeah. So how long, you said 5 years you've been
Yeah.
retired, if you will.
Yeah.
You are now, I know, certified in exactly what to say,
Yes.
EWTS. Could
Yep.
you tell me a little bit about that and when did you get that certification?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I first met Phil, it was a year ago in August. One of my friends had been doing some work with him as one of his certified guides, a friend that I've known almost my whole life, and she was in the mortgage industry. She's like, you have to meet Phil, because she knew I taught language of sales at Keller Williams and had rewritten that program numerous times. Like, you have to meet him. So I met him, and I'm like, yeah, whatever, it's a book. He's an author, cute, cute guy, Harry Potter grown up, whatever. I mean, I
Got a
mean,
British accent, doesn't he?
yeah, exactly. I mean, come
Yeah.
on, like, you could like listen to anything he says, right?
Him
And
and
then
Marcus Buckingham.
yes, yes. And then so I met him, and then I actually saw him speak and went, this guy makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. And a year ago in January, it was actually on my birthday, he was doing a certification that some MAPS coaches were invited to, and I was invited to attend. And I went, and I was like, this is like the missing link. This takes all the stuff, all the communication stuff, and breaks it down into really simple chunks. Because you had mentioned the book. I mean, I always have the book handy. I've got numerous
Yep.
copies, the cards, all that kind of
Uh-huh.
stuff. You'd mentioned the book, and what's really interesting is, this is a series of magic words, right? Phrases that you can use, and they're not meant to be zingers. People are
Right.
like, oh, make them, like, ooh,
Mhm.
look what I did.
Mhm.
No, it's meant to stimulate further conversation. And that's what really resonated with me. So I, Phil and I talked while we were there, and a week later, he invited me to become one of his licensed certified guides,
Oh,
which means that I think there are now 32 or 33 of us that we are
wow.
actually licensed to go out and teach and use his material.
Wow.
There's a lot of people teaching it and using it, and they're probably not doing it in the right way, especially if they're going just from the book, because there's some secrets that people don't know about. And that's why it's great to be certified and things like that. But that's how I started my journey. And then just he launched something towards the end of the year called Exactly Academy. And that
Okay.
is taking the tenets of the book and putting it into topic specific, exactly how to negotiate, exactly how to understand prospecting, exactly how to objection handle. And that to me is really where the rubber meets the road. And what I've done is I'm doing some of his classes exactly as they're written, because they can be a 90-minute, a 3-hour, or a full day workshop. Or, what Phil really wants for us is that we take what we're doing and we stand in front of his material. Take the tenets of the material, go make it our own, and build something even bigger. And that's where a lot of the sales programs and trainings and speaking engagements that I have in 2025 are. It's taking maybe some bits of this, maybe some Rory Vaden, who specializes in branding, and melding it all together, which is something that if anybody was paying attention to my past, what I like to do, take a little bit from here, a little bit from there, a little bit from there. And I can see these things don't stand alone. They all go really well together. And I create a program. So what's really cool about working with Phil though, Jody, is that we have Phil on speed dial. A couple weeks before, well, in November, we spent 2 full days with him working on our, plans for next year, and he plussing it. And then, about a week and a half before Christmas, spent an hour and a half with him, one-on-one, just really, working on some business plans and some concepts, and how to take what I'm doing and what he's doing and make it even, more impactful.
Right. That's
Yeah.
so great.
Yeah. He's just a down to earth guy.
Wow. And where does he live now?
He lives in Hudson, New York.
Okay.
He was in New York City and recently relocated up to Hudson, New York. Just a train ride away from the city.
Nice, nice, nice.
Yeah.
So how does this fit into the timeline of MAPS? And which, by the way, we probably should define a little bit
Yeah.
more. MAPS. I,
Maps.
I think I know what it stands for, but it's changed even since I was there because
Yes.
MAPS doesn't mean the same thing anymore, right?
Well, it's still mega agent productivity systems.
Okay.
And it's the coaching branch of Keller Williams coaching. And we still, offer one-on-one coaching, and I'm still a MAPS coach. I'm a MAPS executive coach, coach lots of people in Gary's top 100 mastermind, which are truly, business owners. They're looking at how do I create an even bigger business, or add ancillary businesses, et cetera. So that's what MAPS is. MAPS is strictly a real estate coaching company for Keller Williams Associates. So, and I do have a private practice where I coach non-real estate agents in whatever their business needs are, communication needs are.
So how does that fit in the timeline? Because you've done MAPS for how long?
Oh, since 2012. Since
So the whole time. Okay.
yes, yes, since 2012. Started out as a bold coach, started one-on-one coaching within 6 months of that, and then just always kept a roster of clients. Got up to about 45, realized that's a little too much
Yeah.
in a week, and tapered it back, and then was offered an opportunity to become a head coach again, which training other coaches, etc. And was able to taper my schedule down and opened up more time for me to start training and teaching, etc. I will say that the training and teaching up until about 2 years ago was very much on the back burner. I was just doing the coaching because I love the flexibility. Love the flexibility of setting my own schedule, working from anywhere. I mentioned I was on a cruise ship in September. I lived on a cruise ship in the Mediterranean for the month of September and worked 2 of those weeks. It's amazing what we can do with technology now,
Yeah.
and
So that's
yeah,
bold. I mean, I think bold, the whole platform, business objective, a
objective,
life by design.
correct.
Because if we're not designing our lives, we're living it by default, which is people don't even know. They don't know what they don't know. So it's not people's fault. It's just that
Exactly.
once
You
we
get
know
in a
something,
rut. Well,
yeah.
it's our brains. We live in habit. Our unconscious mind's whole job, Jody, is to keep us safe and
Mhm.
secure, right? And it loves habits. It loves to not have to, our brain doesn't want to have to think too hard, right?
Right,
It wants to
right.
just be able to do and do and do and do and do. And so we get in those positions where we're comfortable. And then I didn't want to be one of those people that blinked and at 65 years old went, wow, I've been comfortable for a long time, but I haven't done crap.
Mhm.
So when opportunities come along, I really look at them and go, is this in alignment with with what I want? How can I make it work? And then let's do it. Right.
Yeah.
It's kind of that play on the people that have the day where they can't say no to anything. It's a yes
Uh-huh.
day,
Yeah.
right? Um, However, you've got to understand what your parameters are and what you're looking for too. You can't say yes to everything, right? It's knowing what the standards are that you want to keep and what the guidelines are and sticking within them. So
That's
I'm
such a
still very much a coach with maps and doing the fill stuff as well.
That's a really great distinction. I hope everybody heard. You can say yes to things that are within your standards. So you get to design your life. And when you do that, Kara, it sounds like it gets easier to say yes when it makes
Well,
sense
it
and to say
does,
no.
there's that phrase, Jody, that, clarity is power. And it truly is. The clearer you are on who you are and what you want, the easier it is to say no to things and say yes to things.
Right.
Most people will just do a blanket no because they're not sure. It's because they haven't put the time in to really decide, okay, who am I? Who do I want to be? And how do I make, here's there's a fear of being judged.
Mm,
They're afraid to step into who they are because we live in this instant gratification society where you can find out anything about anybody. This fake news rules. You want to know anything, you can pick up your phone and find it out. And I think people are afraid to lean into what they want and who they want to be for fear of being judged. It's now on like this giant microscope. I mean, it's always been there, but now there's like this giant microscopes called social media that just really highlights all this stuff. And it's so unfortunate because who cares? It's very easy to say, who cares what other people think? I mean, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not immune to it. And yet most of the time I'm like, if, 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 if I wouldn't, if they're not going to cry if I'm gone, why do I
right.
care?
Right.
Why do I care? Right. Which pretty much leaves my immediate family and some really, really good friends. You know,
Yeah. Mhm.
if they're the ones that I care about, and consequently, then they're the ones that or subsequently, they're the ones that I go to check things on. Hey, I was thinking about this, and depending on what it is, I've got my brother, my husband, my daughter, and they're the ones that will tell me yes or no, and I know they're being honest with me.
Right, right. When you're coaching people, now I'm gonna
Yeah,
go,
yeah.
real estate people who are at
Mhm,
Keller Williams have kind of been
mhm.
raised in a culture that we kind of know, right? But
Right.
when people are outside of Keller Williams and not maybe in real estate, what do you think is the first hurdle that they come to you with? Is it what you just said? They're worried about what other people think, or is there something else that you're finding people
Well,
are?
Jody, I think that's always the underlying. I
Mm,
mean, that exists in every person, right? We've been programmed that since we were a baby because literally when you're being told no, you're being judged, right? So from the moment you start doing anything, it's like no, no, no. And so that's just what our brain knows. So when talking to people that are looking to be coached outside of KW, got a pretty rigorous cadence of questions that I like to ask them in advance so that they're going to know this coaching is about me. It's not Kara telling them to do something. It's about them being able to look introspectively and tell me about the time they were most proud of themselves, or when looking back on something, when was a time that you in hindsight wish you would have done something different. If they can break down those barriers, we've now poked a little hole It's like they're sitting in a bush and the leaves are really thick. Well, we've now moved them just a little bit so that they can see there's possibility out there. Now it's up to them how much more they want to shake the leaves and move things.
Yeah, that's a different kind of coaching, I think, than people might expect.
Yeah.
There's business coach in my
Mhm.
observation, there's
Yeah.
business coaching, which is do these things, and if you don't do these things, don't call me because there's
Right.
accountability with somebody for doing the things the coach has
Right.
told you to do. My certification's in life purpose and career coaching,
Yeah.
so it's more like what you're describing with the
Yeah.
bushes and seeing through
Yeah.
it. Would you say there are two different ways of looking at that, or are you
Um,
combining them?
I'm combining them
Mhm.
because you know that because you've coached real estate agents before and you coach people, if they're not getting the result they want, it's because there's a fear of something and they're not doing what they need to do to get there, and there's a fear there. I always liken it to this. Um if you ask any person over the age of 10 in the United States, what would someone have to do to lose weight? You're going to get all the answers, right? Exercise more, eat less, quit eating cupcakes. Frosting cannot be your favorite food group.
Me too.
Like, run more, whatever it is. You're going to get all these different answers. So everybody knows what to do. Everybody knows what to do. And yet we live in the most obese country on the planet. Why? It's not because we know what to do. It's because there's something holding us back. There's a fear, right? And it's tapping into that fear. It's the real estate agent who won't pick up the phone and prospect and call people they know and just say, "How can I help you?" Because there's a fear,
Yeah.
right? They know that's what they need to do, but there's a fear. So what I do in my coaching is, and this is where the NLP, the neuro-linguistic programming, comes
Mhm.
in, is we tap into maybe what is the root cause of that fear. Understand that that's just a story you're telling yourself. What could some other stories be? Let's rewrite some other endings to that story. Okay, now that you know that that's not 100% true, let's bring that forward into the now. And what story do you want to create in your experience of making phone calls, or connecting with people who know you and like you already, that you desire to help? So
Right.
it very much ties the business together, because at the root of it, the numbers tell everything, right? The
Mhm.
numbers will tell everything, but the numbers won't tell us the reason that someone is or isn't doing what they need to do. Maybe that, and what I find too, Jody, is that a lot of people feel that they don't deserve the success, right? Go back to I'm comfortable, I'm average. It's good enough.
Yep.
Well,
Yep.
it is until it's not.
So in all of the things that you found to be really helpful for your own practice, I'm
Yeah.
guessing you have to start with yourself. There's a
Yes.
lot of self-awareness. There's a lot of, if we don't do it first, then we're just telling people. I always call it the send your kids to church or take your kids to church. It's there's
Yes.
there's a difference there,
Yes.
right?
I love that.
So you've had to do
Yeah.
a lot of this work for yourself, I'm
Yeah.
guessing. NLP is not easy. I'm a certified NLP
Yeah.
person as well. Energy leadership coaching, is that with Bruce Schneider?
Yes, yeah, that's
Yep.
part of
There's a
the, IPEC. It's
Yep.
it's understanding, it's almost managing your emotions, right? It's managing your reactions and the phases of energy and all of that, and that could be a whole call in and of itself, but it's basically understanding how you react to things, and then once you understand how you react, what do you wanna do about it,
Right.
right?
Right.
I'm a depending on who it is, right? I'm a very patient person. If I don't know someone that well, I'm very patient, very patient, very patient, very patient till I'm not, and then I'm going to cut you off. Now at home, I'm a yeller. I'm be really noisy like a chihuahua, but then it's like, okay, great, but now everything's fine. In the meantime, my husband's just sitting there like,
Mm,
what just happened?
mhm.
Right? So it's managing that energy to go, okay, this is just how it is. And once I know that's how it is, it's like, okay, I see how it affects him. I don't want to do that anymore. So I'm going to start managing my levels of energy differently.
So you have compassion for others who don't see the world the way you do.
There we go.
I don't know that everybody, because there are a lot of people who haven't done this work. And
Right.
so I remember being in a space where I thought everybody saw the world the way I did. How
Well, of
would you
course.
not? Right?
Of course.
Was there a
Well,
breakthrough for you where you're like, oh my gosh, can you think of something specific?
well, there's a program called Landmark. Have you ever gone through Landmark?
Of
Yeah,
course I
the
have.
forum, right?
2003.
Yeah, and without giving it away, because I think Landmark Forum's a good thing. Go ahead, Google it, people. Some people will say it's a cult, some will say it's really helpful. I've done the forum twice and stopped there,
I
because
did
I
the
think
whole
it is
curriculum.
really good, yeah, in
I did the lead.
information, right? And maybe people say it's something more than what it is because they are constantly trying to upsell you on other stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got that out.
Yep.
But I liked it from the standpoint of just the realization that, okay, so I have on a black shirt. Says who? Says who?
Mhm.
Right? Who decided that it was black? Who decided to call it a shirt? Those are just labels. Those are just labels, and it could be anything. There's also I've seen numerous videos, but the one that I've seen that hits the best about perspective is a person standing on the platform of a train, and the train is coming, right? And they're standing on the platform, and in the train, it's a passenger train. In the train are people, and lightning hits the train. Now, the person on the platform says, absolutely, positively, it hit at the front of the train. And the person inside goes, no, absolutely, positively, it hit in the middle or the back of. It's perspective. You and I could be sitting right next to each other and see something happen and have similar narratives,
Mhm.
the same narrative, or a completely different narrative. You know, twins.
Yeah.
You take identical twins. Well, their identicalness isn't 100% because they've experienced different things at different times that have programmed them to who they are.
Right.
So for me, it was that epiphany that everybody just has stories that they've written, right? Or movies that they've recorded in their head. And the more and that movie serves as evidence for whatever they're looking for. So when they see A, their Rolodex in their head flips around and goes, "Hey, I know this movie, and I'm going to run that movie," and that neuron's firing, right? And they just believe that story to be true. Well, that's only one. What if there were many different? And let's look at the possibility that there's different. No, nothing can be only one way. Period. End of story. That's the way I believe. There are going to be people that go, of course things are only one way. Well,
Right.
okay. If that works for them, go for it.
And I think we've noticed that a lot in the political arena that we've
Yeah.
just gotten through, right? Or are just starting maybe. It will, yeah, it's gonna be, scary and yucky and horrible, or it's gonna be amazing and great. But I'm thinking about, Mel Robbins' new book, Let Them.
Yep.
So what am I able to actually have one's little semblance of control over? It's me. It's not all of them.
You can control how you react to it. Right. And that's, I'll remember back a couple elections ago, the first time that President Trump had won. And I remember just hearing some of the things that were saying, and I'm like, why would you choose to be so I want to say mean, right? And this was a guy on the street like shouting things, and it's like, are you doing this just for attention? Like, I go back to that day and the other elections in between and the most recent one, and go, you wake up that next morning, my life really didn't change. I got to admit, like, I don't know, I was a day older, but other than that, my day-to-day life is still my day-to-day life. I don't know how that election in the long run is going to play out. And my reaction to anything, or my thoughts, my emotions, anything around that are mine to control, period. And I'm not going to push my emotion on someone else.
Right.
I just don't operate that way.
So then the people that you attract in your coaching programs and your speaking and all those kinds of things are probably in that same mindset, or they wouldn't choose you as a coach, I would bet.
Right. From the coaching standpoint, yes. Sometimes when we're training, you get a vast, variety in the room, and people will challenge, and that's okay. That's good because that means they're listening and they're paying
Right,
attention,
right.
and they're challenging their habitual thinking, which is the best thing that could happen. I don't necessarily want someone to walk in a class with me and walk out going, "Oh my God, everything she said was absolutely amazing." I mean, I sat there with Phil for 2 days and there was stuff in my mind. I'm like,
Right.
"Okay." And yet, there's some words that we're using. It's like, no, 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 don't use that word because it's a negative
Mm.
word, right?
Yeah.
Just because of what we know from NLP.
Sure.
But I want people to I want people to challenge their thinking that puts them in a place of opportunity that maybe they can learn and grow from it and affect change. I want to be the pebble that ripples, right?
Oh, great.
Throw me in the calm water. I'm going to drop a few nuggets, and if you take one of those nuggets and you can take that nugget and go, "Wow, because of that I changed." And I'm gonna talk to 2 people, or I'm gonna treat 2 people different and vice versa. That's the key.
That seems like it might be your purpose if you had a purpose statement. Do you have a purpose statement for your life?
Um,
Because that would
I
be a good one,
do,
what you
I
just said.
do, but I don't. It is, I mean, we could easily do the Gandhi, right? Be the change you want to see
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
world. And really at its core, it's to help others see the possibility within themselves. That's
Oh, that
really what it is. And
mhm,
what you do with, I can't be responsible for what they do with it. All
right.
I can do is open their eyes or go, "Look over here."
Mm, mm,
Stop looking here, look
mm,
over here.
right.
There's something else happening that you're missing.
Yeah,
Remember, I don't know if you've seen it, but there's a video where I've been in classes and they'll tell you they're dribbling the basketball or
yeah,
passing the basketball, and they'll
yep.
say, "Count how many times the basketball's passed." And I remember doing that. I'm like, "Oh my God, I got this. I win
You
these
get it
things."
right.
Win,
Yeah,
right? And they're like, "Okay, and did you see the gorilla?" And you're like, "What the heck are you
yeah,
talking
yeah.
about?" And then they literally hit the button, play the video again. And while they're passing, there's this like guy in a gorilla suit that walks by, and it's like,
See it?
yeah. But if you're not looking for it,
Mm,
so
yep.
so again, my passion, my purpose is to help people just crack that
Uh,
facade that we're all living in, that shell that we've put up of comfortableness and good enough and average. Just
mhm,
crack it open just a little bit. And to me, the easiest way to do that is through our language and communication.
mhm. So if you had to pick
Mhm.
coaching, training,
Ugh,
strategizing, I think you call it training, strategizing, and inspiring, which would
and
be 3.
inspiring. Yes, yes.
Which do you if you had to only choose one for you?
It's like Sophie's Choice.
I know, right? Don't
Not making
rip the
light of
baby in
that,
half.
but
I
like,
know.
oh, it's there's a reason they're all connected,
Yeah,
right? Because if someone comes to a training and they feel inspired, and then they want to step into coaching because of that, I mean, that's what it's about. I think it goes back to Jody. I can't pick just one because different people are gonna hear things in different ways. The material is gonna resonate with people in different ways. They're gonna hear a message in different ways. Some
right.
people are gonna love Zooms. Other people are gonna love in person.
Mhm.
Some people are gonna love one-on-one. Even when you're coaching, it's like, oh, I want to be on the phone, I want to be in person, or I want to be in Zoom. Right? It's I don't have a preference. I like doing them all. It's what works best for that particular client individual and what's going to help them affect the change.
So if you think about the change that is affected,
Uh,
it feels like there's a bigger umbrella for you, like the pebble that you wanna drop
Yeah.
For what purpose?
For
If
what
you could
purpose? That's
articulate
my
that.
favorite phrase.
Yeah,
That is one of my favorite phrases. I get rid of that 3-letter
yeah.
nasty word,
I know.
WHY,
WHY.
right?
Yep.
Um, it's for the purpose of helping others become more than and not settle.
Yeah.
And I don't want to sit here and sound like I have like some kind of guru complex or something like that, because I certainly don't, because again, I'm a very, very flawed individual. And yet it's, if they can take that and it repairs a relationship at home,
Mm,
and there's a child that grows up in a better home because their parents are communicating better,
yeah.
or someone now can look at things different and make one more sale a month, and their family's financial trajectory changes because of the work we've done together and the way we've opened their eyes. It's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, we all leave with a legacy. Some people will have a very short legacy. Some people will have a longer one. I'm not doing this for my legacy. I'm helping people create their bigger legacy.
That's so good. That's so good. And if enough people, more people, any people choose this of their own volition and choose this pathway for themselves, that ripple that you were talking about, dropping the pebble,
Mhm.
we don't know. It's like my mom was a teacher for 40 years, and one of my favorite quotes was, "A teacher affects eternity because he
Oh,
never knows where his influence stops."
exactly. I mean, I know some people might hear this and go, "Oh, that's ridiculous thinking and it's cheesy," but just think if the leaders of the world adopted the thinking that their way wasn't 100% correct, that there might be other ways to look at things, how different would our world be, right? I mean, I'm not naive enough to think that there isn't always going to be some crazy person out there that wants to hit a button, right? And blow everything up or wants to take everything over. And yet, how much better would society be if we just understood? That's Jody, that's a really cool way to think about it. I see it a little different.
Yep. Not because I'm better, not because I'm
Mm-mm.
smarter, not because
No.
you need to
And it
follow
makes
me.
sense that you would think
Mhm,
that way because of everything that you've
mhm.
lived in your life.
Right,
And if
right,
I
right,
had lived your exact same life, guess what? I'd think the exact same thing,
right.
and vice
And
versa.
and just having that moment of, "What? I never thought
Mhm.
about it like that."
Yep.
For me,
Yep.
that's my biggest joy too, is when you can
Ah,
see that and people are like, "What? Say that again," or let me, that light bulb moment, I think, is what's so
right. Right. And then it's that follow-up question to the light bulb moment of, okay, so now what do you want to do about it?
mhm, mhm.
And
Yeah,
we were talking about business coaching and accountability. It's like, great. I mean, you can be on a coaching call and someone can have these epiphanies, but it's like, okay, well, what do you want to do about it? Because you know what? They're going to hang up the
right.
phone or get off the Zoom and they're going to go back to life. And you know what?
Yeah,
That
yeah.
stuff hasn't changed. And now it's like, I know this.
Mhm.
How do I start to affect the change? Well, little by little,
Yeah.
little by little.
Get with your people, and be who you wanna be with the tribe you have. Like you said,
That's it.
mine's small, but
Yes.
if your inner circle is really tight, they can say anything to you. And I mean, going back to exactly what to say, if they
Right.
learned, not necessarily your husband and your brother and
Yeah.
your daughter,
Yeah.
but the people who are closest to us in our work lives, for example, if we
Yeah.
all knew exactly what to say and in what order, as you said earlier, just imagine the ripple effect of that. They go home to
Right.
their families.
Absolutely. And we joke with Phil all the time that the book shouldn't be exactly what to say, it should be exactly what to ask, right? Because really it's these are all the phrases in the book are the beginnings to great questions, and they're meant to be conversation starters or continuers, right? So if you're open to that, yes, and using things like, there's two types of people. If I'm a leader and I want to affect change, there's two types of people. There's the people who stand up here and say my way is the right way, and then there's people that realize that there's something's not working here and they want to change. I'm going to choose to be that second person, and a sales team, I'm going to bring you in, and now let's collaborate what's working, what's not, and let's figure out how to do different moving forward. You know, there's ways that you can do this. How open-minded would you be to being you know, having a different type of leader, having weekly check-ins that are different than we've had in the past, that focus more on you as a person? Because if that leader can go and now start focus on them as a person, and that, let's say a salesperson feels like the leader really cares about them, not just some number, more sales, more sales, more sales. Again,
Yep.
how does that ripple out?
So good. So good. So imagine everybody, let's just use real estate.
Yeah,
Everybody listening, just imagine a real estate office, which is all about numbers. I mean, they call it
yes,
transactions, right? We call
right,
them transactions.
yes,
We have transaction coordinators who actually take care
yes,
of the transaction.
yes,
If we were only interested in transactions, we would never have repeat business because it would
correct.
be only about the transactions. And what you're talking about right now is the relationship before the transaction.
Yes. And
And
after,
well, forever,
and
right.
after,
Exactly,
right.
exactly. And then you care enough to
Mhm.
care to see the person as an individual, just like at the leaders you're describing.
Right.
It's not necessarily about the transactions, but the transactions can't help but follow the relationship if we're doing this in the way that makes sense.
That's it. That's it. It's not about going out and finding the next deal. It's
Right.
about who's the next person I can help. And when I do a really good job helping that person, they're going to feel so comfortable that they're going to tell their friends and family when they need real estate assistance to, you know, call me as well. It's, again, it's being that ripple, and it's about relationships. You know, if you've got some real estate agents and maybe other industries too that are listening, one of my biggest pet peeves is stop calling people you've done a transaction with a past client. They're still your clients. I
Right.
don't leave my hairdresser every 6 weeks and she goes, well, there goes Kara. She's my past client.
Best client. Right.
No, my doctor doesn't go, she's a past patient.
Right.
No, I don't, you know, and in real estate where we might not see someone for 4 to 7 years,
Mhm.
right? They're quit calling them your past
Mm.
client. Quit throwing them in the background.
So
They're
good.
people you know that you can help.
So good. This is a
Yeah.
subtle distinction, but a really, really important one, which I don't know Phil's work, but it sounds like when we get the correct words or the words that work the
That
best
would
for
be a
the
simple
results we want.
swap. We would
Yeah.
call that a simple swap in
Okay.
fill land. You know, quit calling them a past client, just call them a client,
Client.
right?
Right.
Because a past client intimates something that, yeah, you don't need anymore.
Mhm,
And a client
mhm,
is someone you need now in real estate too. Things like, do you want the list price or do you want the go to market price? Right?
mhm.
Do you want to do a price reduction? Nobody wants to do a price reduction. It's a new marketing price, right? We're repositioning the property within the market. There's so many little simple swaps that you can use with words
It's so funny
that will
because
enroll people in. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
yes, enroll. Yes, enroll before
Mhm.
registration. I know. Um,
Yes.
when we get to that point when because it could feel manipulative, it could be like if you're not in this space and somebody's hearing you talk about this, they could
Yeah.
go, "Oh, that's how you manipulate people." Well, if you're in that
Oh, no.
space of wanting to be right about making this conversation wrong,
Right.
best wishes because that we're not the people, right? We're not your
No, we're not going to do right. Here's the way I always understood the definition of manipulation. It's doing something for, you know, making you do something for my own good. Language, when used correctly, helps the other person get what they want. Now, and as a residual, I happen to get paid.
right.
But I'm also the first to say, like, if we're not a good fit, I don't care how much you want to pay me to be your coach or to list your property. If I'm not a good fit, I'm going to tell you I'm not, and I'm going to refer you to someone I think would be a better fit, because I would be miserable, they would be miserable, it wouldn't work, etc. So it's, you have to be open to being able to walk away. And there's the problem with most salespeople. Their pipeline isn't robust enough. Their relationships aren't deep enough because they haven't been cultivating them enough to say, it's okay if I don't do this one because it's not a great fit. One of my mentors told me years ago, let it go, you'll get two more. He was right.
Mhm.
He was right. And I've just subscribed to that ever since.
Well, there's science to this. This is not, we're not just
Right.
making this up. This is,
No.
there's vibrational frequency and energy, like you said,
Yep.
with your
Energy is
energy.
finite. Yep.
Right? And so it's not like you, Kara, I would bet, need every single client in the whole wide world to work with you. You would be
Don't
so
want them.
overwhelmed. And that's why Phil can't do it all
Right.
himself. He's got
Right.
35 people
Yes.
helping him spread the message, right? This is
Exactly.
not about your scarcity
No.
in I have to take
No.
everything because I might lose something.
No,
This is
that's when
not,
it's manipulative. When
yeah,
if I showed
right.
up in a relationship going, I have to do this because or I have to win all the time. One of the huge
Mm.
things is in negotiation and in life is if I win, what does that make you?
A loser.
Who wants to be one of those?
Right, right, right.
So you never want, I've always heard the phrase win-win or no deal, right? One of the
Yep,
Y4C2Ts from
yep,
KW,
yep.
win-win or no deal. And it took me a while to figure out that that really meant win-win, that you're
Right.
both winning, right? You're both not losing. You're both winning. You're both walking away feeling good. Because there's times or Jody, I don't know if you've ever done this. Yeah, I've certainly done it numerous times where you walk away from a conversation and you're like, yes, yes, I got my way. And then you're like, and it still feels like crud. It wasn't a win-win.
Right.
That was I won, I made the other person lose, and now I gotta sit in my own crud. So it's looking at how do we make everything a win? And that, not to sound Pollyanna-ish, it's just like be open to, if this client legitimately wants to do something now and is missing some facts that interest rates might be a little lower right now than they were 6 months ago or something like that, give them the facts and let them make the decision.
Sure. Well,
That's
and I think
that's the key.
what you're doing there is helping them build their own critical thinking skills instead of having to go back to you all the time to tell them what to do. And
Because people don't want to be told they
right,
do, but they
right,
don't.
right.
They want people to tell them what to do, but then they're going to filter it and go, yeah, I'm not doing that. Believe me, there are plenty of times I did not want to empty a dishwasher growing up, but I knew I wanted to have my phone. I
Mhm.
knew I wanted to go out with my friends. Now, had my mother phrased it differently, like, well, I'm sure you understand, that what's your experience been if you don't empty the dishwasher? Are you allowed to go out with your friends? I mean, how important is that to you? Could it be possible that if you emptied the dishwasher, we could have a lot less friction right now, right? It'd be like, all right, I'll just empty the darn dishwasher. And I probably would have done
You
it on my
made the
own volition.
choice. You
Right.
made right, exactly,
Right.
right. And so we could talk forever, and we will
Yes,
do a part two because I'd love to dig more
I
into
would love that.
other things that you know. But Kara, if anybody has heard something that they really want more information about, how
Yeah.
would they get a hold of you? What's the best way?
You know what? They can go to my website, karamoll.com, KARAMOLL.com. I have a little section on there that says contact me. It's got a nice little box where you just put in your name and your email, and you little text box where you can fill out things. I do have some great workshops coming up. There's an amazing bundle of the prospecting, objection handling, and negotiating on January 15th, 16th, and 17th. And I'm going to be rerunning these as well. But that bundle these are the first time we're ever offering them. So they're ridiculously priced, 90 minutes each, $149 for all three.
Oh my goodness.
You can
Okay,
find the
that is a
information on my
bargain.
website. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we want to give people a taste of the material and how they can use it. So would love to hear from people. Would love if people have questions. Um, Absolutely. Always open to answering, and it'll be me that answers. And you can also find me on social media, on Instagram, the Kara Moll, and on Facebook, it's Kara Moll, Sales and Communication Expert.
Okay. So there you have it, everybody. I would hope you would follow up with Kara because this is really important information, and she's got a lot of tools that will help you if big if you heard something that you're intrigued by, please follow up. Make 2025 the year where you get real, you get radical, energized, authentic, and learning focused about yourself and your own life. And the first step you can do, because this will be the second to the last interview of 2024 for my podcast. Next week, I'll have another one. But make sure you do this, people who are listening. follow up with Kara, and she will help you get real. Kara,
Jody,
thank
you're the
you.
best. Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you.
Appreciate
This
you.
is